I think it was my Mike Ferry coach in 2012. He's like, here's a challenge, or maybe I heard it in a book. I can't remember where, but the challenge was to email 3 to 5 of your closest friends and family and ask them for the 1, 2, or 3 most annoying, worst personality traits or habits that you have. And the rule is you cannot respond. You just have to say thank you. Don't make people pay a price for giving you feedback, right?
Oh, yeah, definitely.
And anyways, I did it. And I think I sent it to like 10 people. Like sent it to a bunch of friends, family, coworkers at Mountain Land. It was when I was at Mountain Land. And it was rough, man. It was kind of hard to hear. Like I was like, I didn't know I did that. I didn't know.
Was there a consistent theme?
Yeah, the consistent theme that I was arrogant and uninterested in people.
Oh my gosh, that is tough.
And
I have a hard time believing that's what they said now. But
well, I'm extremely shy. I'm not a people person. I get anxiety, especially in group environments. And it's not that I don't want to be people's friend. I just really don't want to talk. Like, it's like, what do I say? Like, what do I say in a group setting? Like, I don't know. I'm not the best conversationalist, I feel, unless it's about like real estate and fishing, So yeah, a lot of people just felt like I didn't care. I was too good to be their friends. And I was like, dang, like I want more friends. I want to be people's friends. I just, shooting the shit is like not like, so we go to our office now in Farmington. Mm-hmm. They're all just joking, laughing. And I'm just like fucking working.
Yep.
I'm there to work. And I'm also like, just not comfortable shooting the shit and joking around with a lot of people.
Yeah.
I'm just not comfortable with it. And so I'm training at my brokerage tomorrow. And one of the things I'm going to say is, hey, don't assume I'm not interested in talking to you. I'm here to work. B, I'm just fucking shy, man. Like,
yeah.
I just like, I want to be people's friends. I just like, oh, what do I say?
Yes.
And so it's interesting. I actually worked really hard at being more outgoing. I was also told that I was really monotone.
Yes.
Really boring and monotone. And so I worked really hard at that. But
yeah, I actually had that same problem, especially at Mountain Land. I had people ask me while I was prospecting, cold calling. They'd be like, "Is this a robot?" And I literally would laugh and be like, "That is not good that you think I'm a robot."
That's rough.
Yeah. So what did you guys do if you having that type of feedback, like what did you do to fix it? Like what were your habits to?
So How to Win Friends and Influence People is a really important book. There's just a few principles that I tried really hard to implement. Asking people about them, letting people save face. So not arguing or correcting people. That's really, really important. All of us want to be right. All of us have different points of view, and they're not important. Like, they're just not. Like, it's not important if I think you're doing your AI wrong for me to correct you.
Mm-hmm.
What would actually serve our friendship a lot better is to ask you questions about you, listen, and ask more questions. Mm-hmm. Then I'll learn a lot more too, instead of just trying to prove yourself. Like, you got keyboard warriors and you got people who just can't let other people talk. That's the worst. And so I focused really hard on listening, and it's a sales skill as well. It's on the phone. If you can listen with the intent to understand and not just prove someone wrong, not just spit something back out. So I worked really hard on that. And then the other part I did to not be monotone, John Harvey's like, you're just going to have to act like you're excited as hell 24/7, every conversation you have, to the point where it sounds ridiculous. And I was like, okay, so, hey, how's it going? What's up? He's like, you're buying stuff at the gas station. You're sounding ridiculous to the gas station attendant. You're at the gym, you're with your wife, you're with clients. And he's like, it's going to be painful. He's like, but you're so damn monotone. You're just going to be at everyone else's level finally. Yeah. That's what I did for like a year. And now I'm still pretty monotone, but not as bad as it was.
Yeah. Yeah. Mine's pretty similar. We come from a pretty similar background, starting in real estate, going to the same brokerage, same broker, John Har Jr. And so I think we got attracted to similar things, had the similar interests or priorities. And I had the exact same problems where I didn't show a lot of interest in people anytime they were shooting the shit. I was literally just would past them, go straight into my office. I'm working on my files, or I'm prospecting, and I just think that the people outside my doors are literally just letting money slip through their fingers.
Distractions. Yeah.
Yeah. And then, I go to Century 21 and I see all these people that literally are really good with their social skills, and they're making more money than me, and they're, textbook from what I'm learning and have learned is the best way to do real estate. They're making more money than me, not following that playbook.
Yeah.
And I'm like, well, there's something to be said here about another strategy,
Mm-hmm.
And so I'm like, maybe there's a way to do both. Maybe there's a way to actually learn how to socialize and have connections with people. And so I think the main thing for me that got interesting is realizing there's more than one way to live. There's more than one way to be successful in business. There's more than one way, period. And I think it's a lot easier. It's really, really easy when you have a system like Dave Ramsey or Mike Ferry, or these systems you learn, and they teach you that basically this is the one way. John Har, same thing.
Yep.
Right? There's this
the Mormon Church.
The Mormon Church. Yeah, yeah. This is the one way to be happy. And when we realize that that's not true, we can basically say, okay, what pieces of this thing do I want to take, and what pieces do I want to discard that are not serving me?
Mm-hmm.
And then what things can I pick up from my friends that this person's more social, I want to be more social, and so I'm going to adopt those things that they do.
Yep.
And that's the main thing that I've learned is, so now instead of acting like I'm interested in a seller and saying, oh, okay, I need to learn their motivation so I can manipulate how they're going to sign the contract and get to the realization they should hire me right now. And instead, I literally just actually become interested in this person and what their priority is. And then I act like that's my priority. And it's like, okay, you are moving to Salt Lake because you're retiring, and I act like I'm moving to Salt Lake and retiring, and I'm like, this is a very big deal.
Yeah.
Like if I was retiring, I'd really want this to go smoothly, and so what things can I do to make sure this happens smoothly for my client? And it doesn't just help me focus on their motivation and show that I care. It also helps me attack the situation or address the situation in a totally different manner.
I think what you're talking about is called empathy.
Yeah, empathy. There you go. A learned trait for me.
Me too. I mean, but like the sales trainers that I had, and I'm not going to name names, but zero empathy.
Zero.
And it's not natural for my personality either, because I'm an introvert. So I'm like, I had to learn to empathize and learn to take a genuine interest. So the gentleman that was just in here shooting a podcast, naturally super empathetic. And that's why they say a lot of amiables do the best in sales, because they actually naturally care and listen and put themselves in the other person's shoes. And I'm just like, effing sign the contract because I know this is what's best for you. Freaking do it. Like that's my personality. That's my brain. But
I would challenge you on that a little bit, because I think you're a very empathetic person.
Well, that's what I learned. That's how I used to be.
Oh yeah. Well, I think that possibly, and correct me if I'm wrong, but it's possible that you were it was avoidance. You didn't want to care about them because then you would go too deep. You would care too much about their situation. Is that possible? Because that's how it was for me.
Yes and no. I think for me it was, I really, really care about the people close to me.
Yeah.
And I love helping people. And I for real estate, I had to make the connection that my clients were people to be cared about.
Yeah.
So no, it's a very different journey for me, and I don't know why. Upbringing. My dad's really like that. Like anyone outside his circle, like doesn't matter.
Oh, so
I don't know if
conditions, maybe.
I don't know if that's what it was, but now like I really care about my clients, really care about what they've got going on. So I don't know. Maybe it was maturing. Maybe it's because I was a selfish kid in my 20s.
Yeah, yeah. Well, that's the reality too. Is you're just young and immature.
Like focused on myself. Maybe it's because I was trying to survive a kind of shitty marriage, and I didn't have the freaking brain power. I was just trying to keep my baby healthy and happy, and my wife healthy and happy, and that's all I could freaking muster at the time.
So Sam was in survival mode. Finally
Yeah.
got out of survival mode, has empathy. What about you?
I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't even think it's that. I think that you, like, the way, just knowing you're so hyper focused on the mission.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes you get tunnel vision.
Yeah.
And that, like, to get to the goal, everything else is like extra.
Feelings get in the way. So that's what I was just trying to make the example. I was like, sign the contract, get the emotions, the mission, and not the feelings around that.
See, and I'm the complete opposite. It's like, cool, you want to sell. I was like, what's going on? Like, tell me your story. Like, I don't sign a contract until I'm already under contract. And then it's like, oh crap, we got to get all this paperwork done that we should have done like day one. Yeah. Because I don't really care about that part. Like, the money's awesome, but it's the story. It's
taking
the
care
why.
of the client.
It's the why. It's give me your whole, like, I want to know the fluff, the pillow, everything that's around it to understand, like, where did that, why? Like, I ask why like 30 times. Well, why? Well, why is that? Well, what's going over there? Like,
oh my
what's your family like? Like,
and this is why she's amazing.
And this
realtor.
is the reason clients love Betty, because she shows them love. So
like,
hold on, guys. We didn't introduce ourselves on the podcast. Really quick. Unplanned here. We have Betty Jo. She was able to jump in. I asked Matt to be on the podcast. We're all realtors here. Yeah. We're all friends.
This is awesome.
This is exciting. This is fun. This is my dream, just to do podcasts with really fun, good people.
Good.
So Matt, you and I have known each other for a few years. Successful realtor, dad, husband. You do lots of other stuff, lots of hobbies.
Yeah.
But what sticks out to me is you're just a happy, nice guy. And
thank you.
I've heard you do a great job for your clients as well.
Okay.
That's the type of people I've gravitated towards. And that's what got me really excited about doing this podcast. So we're going to talk more about real estate, transactions, personalities. Betty Jo, you and I are dating. Like, we live together. You're a good person. But also, the same holds true. Your clients really appreciate how much you care and how good of a person you are. And that's why you've been hugely successful. So I wanted to talk really quick and give you guys credit, because credit is due. Matt, you're hugely successful and you're a great dad and husband. So congrats.
Thank you.
Betty, you're hugely successful and you struggle with imposter syndrome. So I just want to really quick, Matt, and I know you'll agree with me. It's pretty rare to find a girl that makes 6 figures, single mom of 4, also a house flipper, crushing it in all of those categories. And Betty struggles to say that she's successful and that she's made it. Would you say she's made it?
Oh, definitely.
Over multiple times over, right?
Yeah, definitely. And from multiple perspectives. Yeah.
From multiple perspectives. So can I just get you, Betty, to, for once and for all, admit that you've made it?
I've made it.
No. You got to say it like you actually believe it.
I believe it. It's not.
Has Matt made it?
Fuck yeah. Like,
so say that about yourself too. Have you fucking made it?
I fucking made it. I'm
all
a baller.
Thank you. No, you got to say it. You got to actually believe it.
I do. I really do believe it. Like, I think being the type of person where there's never like a ceiling to hit. It's just like, you just keep going. It's like, where do you measure success?
Yeah, because there's always the next level. Yeah. Right.
And then, of course, like, you've got, I mean, I hate the word childhood trauma or whatever, but you've got people that you want them to be proud of you and they never will in the ways you want them to. So you're just always like, oh, I'm not there yet. Oh, I'm not there yet.
Yeah.
So you kind of wrap yourself around this untrue story. But yeah, sometimes like taking the before and after pictures from the gym, it's a real thing. You compare yourself because you don't always see progress unless you lay it out. So I struggle with laying out the progress because it feels like bragging.
Mm-hmm. It is bragging, and bragging both paid, damn it.
Yeah, it definitely is.
You're awesome. So again, we're talking to Matt here. We're going to focus on Matt. We're going to focus on Betty a little later. But Matt, you're top 500 realtor in Utah. Congrats. That's huge.
Thank you.
You and your wifey have been on a journey together
Definitely.
And her and I talked at a party, and she just kind of opened up to me randomly. And she's like, man, Matt has been so supportive and loving. And Betty and I
You
have
can
both
see
been, yeah, and you can totally see it. Betty and I have both been divorced. And I was like, man, what I would have given to have a partner who like was willing to grow with me. What I would have been. And now I feel like Betty and I are pushing each other, growing with each other. And it's hard. Like, would you say it's been pretty hard to navigate what you and Cherie have been going through?
Yeah, it really is. It's crazy. I mean, it's interesting how you hear and see other people go through things, right?
Mm-hmm.
And somehow you think that's going to prepare you for your marriage and you going through things, but it's your own unique experience, and you start to really see why like so many people get divorced.
Yep.
And you're like, man, if I wasn't willing to face this right here, that in itself could ruin my marriage.
Yeah.
You know? And so yeah, I talked to one of my friends who grew up and his mother abandoned him. He literally went out on his own at 16, and he's one of the most amazing guys, Daniel. And I don't know if you ever met him. Did you ever meet Daniel by chance?
I don't know if I know Daniel.
Yeah, I can't wait for you to meet him. It's amazing.
It'd be great.
And lives in left Salt Lake. Went to California, is doing commercial real estate there, but he grew up in New York. Left his family at 16. Got his own apartment, started his own business, started traveling to Pakistan and creating his own clothesline.
Wow.
Just like one thing after another.
Wow.
Amazingly successful, and like very, very, like tons of stories out of that guy. He also, because he didn't grow up with parents, he's got mommy issues. He doesn't have a good foundation for what a dad
Mm-hmm.
would do for his kids. And so he struggles in his relationships. And so I feel like it's such an honor that he calls me and he asks for me for advice. And
Wow.
and today I'm sitting there at the gym, like supposed to be benching, and I'm talking to him for 45 minutes about his relationship, and it's difficult to see how many things you can mess up on.
Mm-hmm.
Is actually like kind of daunting.
Yeah.
But the reality is that like you just have to continue every time you come across an obstacle. I don't know, every day. Everybody's gonna say every day. That's kind of overwhelming, right? But like every time you come across an obstacle, I just choose to understand from my partner's perspective, like what they're going through,
Mm-hmm.
right? And then also be willing to look back and imagine as if I'm somebody else looking at my life and try to give myself sympathy and grace, because I'm also just doing the best I can,
It's huge.
I love that.
And so I just try to step back, and when I do that, it kind of simplifies things, and it allows me to move forward with our relationship a little less emotionally, as far as irrationally, emotionally,
A little less triggered.
and just a little bit more calm.
They did this study of people who got divorced, or just couples. And the ones who got divorced were the ones who struggled to empathize. So you come home from work, had the craziest day, Cherie, and she's like, you had a crazy day? Like, it's been so hard with these kids.
Mm-hmm.
Instant, like, disconnect, right?
Yeah.
And if you say, man, I had the craziest day, she's like, oh my God, tell me about it. Like, what happened? So
Yeah.
sorry.
So much better.
And then she's able to say, I had a crazy day too. These little fetchers were running amok.
Yeah.
And you're like, damn, we both I'm so sorry you had a crazy day.
Yeah.
And so Steve Powers gave me some sales advice. Amazing
he's
sales
amazing.
coach.
Yeah.
And it's something that everyone's so bad at. I'm so bad at it. But just three words, right? Subordinate your story. And what does that mean? Hey, man, I had the craziest day. Oh, me too, man. You'll never believe what happened.
Immediately go to theirs. Right?
Yeah, shut the fuck up
And listen.
and ask questions. And it was a sales advice, coaching that he was giving to me. But it's like, yeah, ask your partner, oh, tell me about that. Like, geez, how was that for you?
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. I'm so sorry. So that was an interesting video that Betty sent to me. I was like, yeah, that, it's a huge disconnect when people don't empathize and don't talk. And if Betty tells me something and I'm just like, oh, sucks to be you, whatever, that's terrible. And so, she sent me that video. I'm like, wow, I really got to improve. I feel like I try to ask questions and say, oh my gosh, that's rough. I'm sorry. But we can all improve a lot in that area.
Mm-hmm.
So what you were saying was empathy, and that stood out to me. I want to dig a little bit deeper on you and Cherie and this journey you've been on. You guys have really dug into who you are as people.
Mm.
And I know Cherie is a really present person. Like, she really thinks about what she's feeling, who she is, what she's doing. I also know family is really important to you. And so the last gentleman, and this was totally unexpected, but this last interview really, I felt bad. I wanted more time with this guy because he opened up and he said, yeah, my wife told me she's no longer Republican, she's liberal, and she no longer is going to go to church. And this guy went on a mission. He's still very LDS.
Very difficult, yeah.
And I could actually feel it and see it, that like he probably wanted to talk a little bit more about it.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't feel comfortable asking him about it in this setting on the podcast.
Yeah.
Because I wasn't sure if he really wanted to talk about it, but I could tell he was struggling with it.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, damn. Like, I thought this was going to be about his freaking awesome franchising muffler shop. And I'm going to call the guy and go to dinner or lunch with them. And, but it sounds like he might be struggling a little bit. Well, I mean, sure he is. That's a huge lot. You get married in the temple.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden your spouse says, I don't want to go to church anymore. That in Utah and within a Mormon, extended family, that's a huge thing. So,
and the implications that means within his belief system for his family are massive.
Kids.
It's world shattering, right?
Yeah.
And so that's a very difficult thing. And it's just like along those lines, it's what's so important when you're talking to anybody and your friends, family, prospects with your business, whatever, that it's really important to recognize, just like George Morris would say, founder of Century 21, Everest, he would say that, you have to treat everybody like they're going through the hardest time of their lives, because more than half the time that's true.
Yeah.
And that, I think, is where my empathy may have actually started, if I think about it, is just recognizing like how many people are going through difficult times, and also just talking to 10,000 people on the phone and recognizing that everybody has the same basic wants and needs, and that eventually getting to that realization.
He actually said something that was interesting. He's had a few friends get divorced recently.
Yeah.
And he's like, man, they were suffering for years.
That's crazy.
He's like, it was crazy to hear them announce they're getting divorced and then talk about the last 5 years have been hell.
Isn't that
Just
that's
trying
kind
to
of how it
survive.
always goes, though, right? It's like you talk to your friends once they get divorced and they're like, oh yeah, our sex life was terrible, or this was terrible. And it's like, whoa.
Kept trying to make it work.
Yeah.
Kept, and with my ex, we had come to Jesus's, we had, like, I was trying so freaking hard and I was yet so miserable.
Mm.
And he asked me a question, this last interview. He's like, well, so you were going to stay? And I was like, yeah, I was never going to leave. I wasn't going to leave my kids and my wife. I wasn't going to be that guy.
Yeah.
I was freaking in it till, ride or die. But would I go back and try to stay now, knowing hell no, I would never. I would have left earlier, knowing I could be so happy. you know? So tell me a little bit about your and Shrie's journey. And I mean, it's come up when we hang out, we hang out, and Cherie opened up to me for like an hour and a half one night at a party. And that was like, oh, wow. Like, this has been miscarriages has been real, like, for her, really impactful. I'm sure for you as well. Miscarriages, deconstruction of faith and different things, and guilt, and then family not accepting your changes in faith and things like that. So what's been, and so let me, before you answer the question, the reason I'm asking this is, as I've done a podcast since 2020, I would ask these questions and people would be like, they'll text me, be like, Sam, that was so good. Like, that person's going through hell right now and I'm going through the same exact thing. Thank you so much. And I would be like mind blown. Like, was just doing a podcast. I didn't know I was helping people.
Yeah.
And so
Yeah.
I was just enjoying the conversation, slightly oblivious, just having fun. So now that I've been doing this a while, I'm like really conscious of, Matt, I want to hear your story, and just know that as you answer these questions, get as dirty and crazy as you can with your challenges.
Yeah.
It's so dirty. God damn it, Matt. Get as deep. Oh, damn it.
That's what he said.
Fuck. Oh,
We'll get some laugh tracks in here.
yeah, this is great. Fucking.
Oh, that's what she said.
Yeah.
Thanks, Betty. Appreciate it.
You're welcome.
So if you could go as deep as possible.
Yeah.
No, but people
Just be willing to be as vulnerable and
as vulnerable.
real
Not
as possible. Yeah.
So people watch the news because they're attracted to negativity.
Yeah.
And that's true, but people also watch the news and also listen to rough stories or people's challenges because they relate
Yeah.
and they find comfort in it, and it also helps them through their challenges.
Mhm.
That's what I was trying to say. And so when you share that, some people kind of hold back and they're like, I'm not sure if I should say that, but just know that as you share stories, it is truly healing and helpful for a lot of people.
Yeah.
And I feel like there's a lot of people that have gone through or going through the same thing as you.
Mhm.
So tell me a little bit about, the last few years. You guys got married in the temple,
Mhm.
Mormon, going to church, starting your real estate career, trying to have a great marriage, raising kids, and kind of got turned upside down in some of those areas.
Oh, definitely. Yeah. Yeah. So we've been together for 13 years now this May, and married 13 years and together since August will be 14 years. And I'd say that we were babies when we got together. I was 22, she was 20 when we got married, and waited, I thought was an eternity to have kids, which is 3 years. And
You're 25.
Yeah, I'm 25 having kids, and I was like, wow, we really did a good job and waited a long time.
Yep.
And so we had our first, who's now 10, and then we had 2 more kids down the road, and but over the years, I've always been kind of it started probably when I was really young, because I started homeschool when I was in 3rd grade in California. Mm-hmm. And so, I'm the Mormon kid in the neighborhood who goes to homeschool. So I always used to being like
that explains a lot.
It does explain a lot. And you're not wrong, actually.
Another thing you guys have in common.
Guess who else was homeschooled?
You were homeschooled too?
Until 4th grade.
No way.
Yeah.
So for me, it was 3rd through 9th grade.
Oh, that's worse.
So those 6 years were pretty detrimental. Like, they're so important for learning social skills, and those 6 years. Yeah. Yes. So it's taken so much effort
Betty's
for me.
Like, shut up, dude.
Yeah.
No, I'm laughing because you have the same problem. Just kidding.
Okay. I was wrong. She's making fun of both of us.
Just kidding.
Thanks, Betty.
Yeah. So those 6 years just made my life so much harder to learn how to socialize and to communicate with people, and so many things that my mom didn't know how to teach me. She was my teacher, Mm-hmm. And anyway, so those 6 years, I got used to being the different kid, and I still had a lot of friends. I would say that I was unpopular at any means. Like, I got invited to parties and went and hung out with a lot of people, and then I moved to Utah. And I moved to Utah when I was 16. Very upset about the move, but the best thing that's ever happened to me, moving to Utah, going to public school. Yeah. Now that my mom trusted that I wasn't in a heathen public school in California, we are going to Utah school now, so everything's gonna be great, and
Perfect.
Yeah, and so I started sophomore year in public school, and obviously not
that
used.
Would be so hard.
Not used to public school.
Yeah.
Don't have a single friend going to sophomore year.
Holy cow.
And that was kind of crazy. Fortunately, sophomore year is the first year of, like, in Utah, right? You have
For high school. Yeah.
High school, sophomore, junior, senior years are and a lot of the high schools are the only 3. You don't do freshmen. Usually that's in junior high. And so I at least had that leg up that a lot of people had changed schools. They're the same age as me. And so around that time, I finally started to like learn some social skills, get some friends and stuff like that. Fast forward.
Did you tuck your shirt in?
No.
I did freshman year.
You did? Okay. That's great. Yeah.
my mom made me wear Wranglers in 6th grade, man. Fucking Wranglers.
We're still working on Sam style.
Betty hates the shirt. Why did you even bring it? You hate the shirt.
You said brown shoes and blue pants.
Okay.
So I got a shirt that you liked and I got a shirt that I liked.
Yeah.
Anyway,
because I'm nice.
so you gained some social skills.
Yeah, I get some social skills,
Sophomore
make some
year.
friends, and and so fast forward, I graduate, I go on a mission for 2 years, and
Where'd you
again,
go?
I went to California, San Fernando mission.
Okay.
Doesn't exist anymore, but San Fernando mission for 2 years, and for my LDS church, and again, right, you're on a mission. Everybody looks at you. You're different.
Yeah.
Right. And so I just, again, got used to being the weird person and kind of enjoyed it. I kind of enjoy being the odd man out and weird person and different than everybody else around
too.
me. Yeah. Yeah. And
I'm
so
in between.
you're in between?
I've always been different. Really, I don't like trends.
Mm-hmm.
And yet at the same time, I do want to fit in sometimes.
Yeah.
But then I bought a purple car, like,
Yeah.
so like I'll do, I feel like I'm always teetering, like want to fit in, have friends, golf with all the guys, go do all the things that all my guy friends do. But then I'm like, no, fuck that. I'm going to do what Sam wants to do. But then I have less friends. Like it's this interesting back and forth. But anyways,
Not to get sidetracked, I just want to hear how many horsepower was that?
707.
707 horsepower. It's just
It was
Let that
insanely
sink.
fast. It was fun. It was my congratulations for making $1 million in 1 year.
wow.
Bought myself that car and it was fun.
Yeah.
It was really, I smiled.
Not to get sidetracked. I
kept
just
it.
Smiled every time I started the car. It was so loud and so fast.
yeah, I only got to live vicariously through your social media at the time.
It was fun.
But yeah, so what were we talking about before
So-
the car?
So being maybe not an outcast, but being different.
Oh yeah,
Enjoying
being different. Yeah,
You
so
like it.
I'm a mission. That's not necessarily my favorite kind of different because I was never really super religious. All through high school, my plan was actually to run away to Mexico to avoid going on a mission
Wow.
and like avoid my parents' judgment of not going on a mission.
There's huge amount of pressure.
Yeah,
as a
huge.
teenage boy in the Mormon church
Yeah, definitely.
from family and church and
So-
neighbors.
So
Yeah.
you went for to like please your family.
I think it's complicated because, eventually I started dating girls that were members. At first I was dating girls that weren't. And then I started dating girls that were, and I started to see, okay, these are the kind of girls that I would like to have a relationship long term. And so I realized, I'm like, okay, well, if I'm going to have a relationship like this, apparently I have to go on a mission and do the thing, And so I chose to continue doing the checklist of things that I need to do in order to meet the criteria.
When you say that these girls had these are the type of girls you wanted to date, was it the morals, character? Like, what was it? Was it a checklist?
I think it's just the stuff that I was programmed to believe was important. It's like, oh, this is a good girl, and this is somebody who, this is the kind of girl that you marry, and so some of it was probably literally they were just good girls that I liked and that I was attracted to, and then part of it was just the programming of this is what I've been told is a good girl to marry. And in the religion, you are, and I think this is not unique to Mormonism, but in the religion, you are basically taught to, basically your mission is to get married and start a family as soon as possible. And so
You're told to get, like my mission president said, get married within the year of getting home.
Yeah,
Jeez.
like
which is insane.
that's absolutely insane programming. And kids are going on missions at 18 years old and leaving at 20. And so you're getting married at 20 years old. That is, a lot of kids are still not done with puberty at that point.
Brain's not even developed.
Your brain's not
You
fully
know who
developed.
you are as a person.
And yeah, I mean, and also you're getting married without long term because they don't want to be getting married with infidelity or what,
Yeah,
not
you don't
infidelity,
wanna-
but without following the laws
Being
of
a
chastity.
virgin. Just kidding.
Yeah,
So
being
yeah,
virtuous.
They want to have sex.
Yeah,
They get married,
very quickly.
and then they're like, "We're not compatible at all."
But you're
Like,
stuck.
That's insane.
Out of it, yeah.
Then you're stuck. Then you're told just pray away the temptation, the urges, or like
Yeah,
it's life outside of that bubble for me has been really interesting. And not to cut you off, but I'm going to cut you off, then we'll jump back to what you're saying. What did it for me was, yes, I believed in the church. I loved the Book of Mormon and and the Bible and the beautiful things that it taught about helping others and loving others and charity, like really important to me as a person, and still is. But I started hanging out with really successful, good people. And as I became more successful, started hanging out with the Mike Ferry crew, all these people making millions of dollars per year. I'm like, wow, they're really good people. Like, they drink though, man. Oh, they're single. And
it's
they're
too bad they're
having
bad
sex.
people because they're really
Yeah.
cool. Yeah,
They're really good people, but they're going to hell. So
yeah.
enjoy hell.
Such an
No.
interesting stance because I've always been the opposite. Like, I've never been the good girl. I've never been
Yeah.
the wife material.
We know, Betty. You're a bad girl.
It's like, no, like, yeah, it's interesting to hear this side.
Yeah.
So I met all these really great people, and I started studying what do you call them? The laws of the universe, the laws of success and happiness. And I consumed more books than I can count, and podcasts and studies and trainings about happiness and success and how the human brain works. And what organized religion and the Bible and the Quran, all these really hardcore religions teach is exactly opposite to what the world's knowledge has learned creates success, creates happiness. Guilt and judging others creates unhappiness. And when I started putting two and two together, I was like, oh my gosh, like, we're taught that this creates happiness. It absolutely does not create happiness. Like, judging others to the point of you're going to hell if you have a drink, but yet I can, do X, Y, and Z, and I'm going to heaven. Like, that is so messed up. And so it really affected my marriage and my life. But that's when I started having these realizations, as I started hanging out with these people and learning and studying and educating myself on what makes the human brain happy.
Well, then that's the reality, right? Is travel, getting out of your bubble, meeting new people, like getting educated on things outside of the dogma and the traditional programming. Obviously, there's so many roads to the truth. And so, like, you literally just need to find one other road, and it's going to start leading you down the realization of, oh, I've been programmed in this way, right? And so, like, it's really easy when you grew up with our programming, and there's so many stories like ours, but they're all so different because there's so many different roads to get to where we are, at least with our religious journey, right?
Yeah, and everyone's so different. So, I say the same thing about politics. I'm like, you're wrong and you're right. Like, if you believe something, yeah, you're right, actually. If you believe in abortion, you can find a million articles and people that agree with you. And if you don't believe in, like, there's so many different things we can talk about. And same things with religion, same thing with whatever it is you want to talk about. And so I kind of I pulled way back from politics and religion, and I said, what does it take to, like, make me happy? Well, I'm a highly sexual person. That doesn't work in the Mormon church.
Yeah.
My wife thought I was a freaking weirdo.
Yeah.
Like, that wasn't fun. And I don't think alcohol's bad. I don't actually like to drink very often. We're enjoying a whiskey now. I haven't had a drink whiskey probably in 6 months, but it's fun when you're having a podcast.
Sure.
But no, just really, I just wanted to know, how can I be an amazing person? Well, I'm going to help others. I'm going to kick ass as a dad and teach them how to be good people, spend quality time with them. I'm going to be honest and be extremely honest with my investors, my clients, and I'm going to learn how to have empathy, which we talked about.
Yeah.
And that's what I started focusing on. And then you get these people who are so focused on the church, but have no ability to have empathy, or they're so focused on, and what is Christianity? Love and empathy. That's the real Christianity is love and empathy.
Well,
how many people actually successfully show love and empathy when they're focusing on judging others?
Yeah, and I think it's important to draw the line between, like, it's not that everybody that's in a religion by any means doesn't have love and empathy. It's just that you can exist in that universe and check all the boxes, really, for the most part, and not have love and empathy. And that's like I think that's the dangerous part of it. And so, which is obviously where the foundation is, right? If you're a Christian and you have Christ as a foundation, he is love and empathy, right? And so that's a scary thing.
You're absolutely right. And I think we take it a step further. It's actually impossible to have love and empathy if you're judging others. So, and again, like, let's freaking quote the Bible. You've got a mote in your eye, I've got a beam in my eye. Like, Jesus, like, whether you believe in him or not, made some really good points. Like, worry about yourself.
Definitely, yeah.
Not freaking judging other people.
We start running into that Sadducees, Pharisees, where they have this checklist of things, right? Don't have a needle in your cloak as you're walking on the Sabbath, and all these little rules.
Yeah,
and we kind of forget the main message, right?
Yeah, for sure. So I have a funny story, Betty. You and I were dating, and my friend who is super religious, super terrible marriage. It's really sad. Still married. I hope he doesn't listen to this, but if he does, he knows who he is, and he knows I love him to death. He knows I'd probably take a bullet, like literally do anything for, probably not take a bullet, but do just about anything for this guy. Really, like, we're brothers. But he calls me to check in after my divorce because he knows I'm dating. And it was funny. I went out to Dallas and was talking with him, or I think I stopped in, and he met me at an airport. I had a layover. We're talking. I'm telling him about Betty. We're dating, and he's like, "Oh, that's cool." He's like, "So is she Mormon?" I'm like, "Well, no." He's like, "So, like, you guys sleeping together?" I'm like, "Yes." He's like, "Man, you're really straying." He's like, "Don't stray too far from the path. I'm worried about you."
He said that exact thing.
Yeah, and I'm like, "What the fuck am I listening to?" I'm like, "Okay, this went from like a fun lunch with my buddy who I went to college with and shoot guns with and like played video games with to like, man, like, don't." So anyways, we continued talking. He made a couple more comments like that. And I was like, "Hey, bud, like, how's your marriage?" He's like, and I was kind of pissed, but I wanted to prove a point to him. And I was like, and I knew it was bad, and this was kind of a dick thing to say, but I was like, "So do you look at porn?" He's like, "What?" I'm like, "No, you can tell me. We're friends. Like, once a week, 3 times a week, 5 times a week." And, because like, I feel like Betty's a really good person. We have a great relationship, and it's none of his business to ask me and be concerned with what I'm doing.
Yeah.
With my sex life. And so I was trying to make a point. He's like, I'm like, "No, just tell me. We're friends, dude. Tell me, do you look at porn? Are you on Pornhub once a month? Once a week?" And he's like, "Oh, like 5 times a week." I'm like, "I know. You guys have sex like once every 6 months." And I was like, "So why are you even asking me? Why are you commenting on what I'm doing?" Because I'm pretty sure in the church, looking at porn is really bad.
I mean, looking at porn
Isn't that considered
kind
cheating on your wife? And so it was a really interesting conversation. And I was kind of giving him shit, like, kind of like, "Hey, buddy, like, thanks for being concerned, but shut the fuck up."
Yeah.
Like, and so he just sat there and he was like, "Wow. Yeah." And so what's interesting is he's still made a few comments, but since then he's opened up to me about things. And I feel like he kind of took that with like, "Okay, maybe I shouldn't judge this maybe I shouldn't judge Sam so much and be concerned with what he's doing and maybe just be a friend. And since then, our conversations have been about, how are you doing as a person? Love you, man.
Yeah, I really appreciate that story because, like, I think it demonstrates a couple things. Like, there is a phenomenon that happens where when you're in a culture like this, you have these bearings. You have these people that you believe. Like, if he believed that you were an active, strong member of the church, of his church, right, and he believed that you were a bearing for him and part of like his testimony, almost like he looks at like, okay, well, I believe this is true, and so does Sam, right? And it kind of gives him a foundation.
Yeah.
And then he hears that, oh my goodness, you're having sex outside of marriage, and that's a huge no-no in the religion. And so then so it's almost like he has to reconfigure in his brain. Going back to that empathy thing, right? Mm-hmm. It's like having empathy for him in his position, because I used to be there where, I'd use people as a foundation. And then when they strayed, I'd be like, what the heck, man? Like you were a staple for me.
Yeah.
You were a bearing for me.
Or, wow, you must be a bad person now.
Yeah, you must be a bad person now. But the reality is I would not pass that judgment on somebody who was not a member of the church. And the reality is most of my friends were not members of the church. That's the people I actually spent most of my time with, were people outside the church, because I felt like I had a better connection with them. And it was just, that's how I grew up as well in California.
Yeah.
And so almost all my friends were either not serious in the religion or not members. But I still passed judgment on those people that left or that
because they have
strayed.
a standard,
It's
a certain code.
Exactly. Yeah.
Betty, I don't know if you've ever experienced this, but I've had people that like almost tell me in a way like I'm dishonest for not going to church anymore. And I don't know
that you can't be an honest person if you don't go to church.
You can't be an honest person if you decide to stop going to church.
Interesting.
Have you ever had that, Betty? Or what have you experienced?
Yeah, I moved to Utah when I was pretty little, and I had a very different view of the church. Being 5, not being allowed to play with kids because we were Catholic.
That's so hard to hear.
And not only were we Catholic, but we were also like the poor family in the neighborhood.
Poor Catholics, yeah.
So I had old ladies like tell me I'm condemned to hell, and I'm not understanding how that works and not being able to play with kids. And then as I got older, I had like a little bit of a hate because I felt like I was never good enough. Like, didn't matter how straight my hair was or how good I was at basketball. Like, you're a bad kid. And so
don't hang out with the non-Mormon. That's dangerous.
You don't know how far they'll go.
Yeah, we don't want you to corrupt our kids.
Yeah, I took the blame for everything. I was point guard and I was co-team captain, and one of the girls on our team, Bishop's daughter, invited some boys to our room. We did nothing. We literally sat there and talked and like played cards. No one touched each other. No one nothing. And then they left before midnight. We all had a tournament the next day. Everything went great. And like a week later, we got called in at like 5 a.m. And I took the blame. They suspended me from starting for the rest of the season.
No.
Wow.
I lost my team captain status.
Because it couldn't possibly be the bishop's daughter. It was the non-Mormon.
She was, the demons took over, and I was like a bad influence or something. And anyway, it was kind of a weird situation. But I just remember at that point, I just had this like somewhat of a hate, because it was like, if I don't get baptized, I will always be this like bad person, not wife material, not girlfriend material. And so I had high morals for myself just because of the stigma. So, I didn't really party. I didn't date boys until I got my first boyfriend at 17 and got pregnant. So, yeah, well, I was doomed.
When you go hard, girl. Yeah.
Well, at the same time, though, that's still an issue, because sex and premarital sex is so condemned.
Yeah.
They expect these teenagers to not even talk about it.
No, I
And
had no
it's so
freaking
part
clue.
of the human brain and wiring.
Yeah.
People are going to have sex, and then they
They
don't
get
have safe sex, and they get pregnant.
they get pregnant, and then you
It's a
have
huge
like
issue.
there was lots of people, like you hear about all these like teen pregnancies where they go off and like hide and end up giving the baby up for adoption, and then they've got this guilt. It happened to my mother-in-law. Like, she had a baby and she gave it up for adoption, and then found him like 35 years later,
Wow.
and through the newspaper. And so but so I have a different views with the church because living here in Utah my whole life, most of it. I've also found some really, really good people. So I have a lot of love for the church. I wouldn't say the church. I have a lot of love for the church, for the humanitarian, for like they're like always ready to help, no matter what.
And I think that's kind of my point to the church, to people in the religion, is you outside of Utah, there's good and bad people everywhere. Inside Utah, just because you're Mormon doesn't mean you're a good person. Just because you're Catholic doesn't mean you're a bad person.
There is a weird culture here in Utah, and that culture made me not want to become a member, because I've gone to church many times, but I actually became a convert when I was 22, and I was pregnant with my second daughter. And I got baptized in Hawaii, and the culture there was so beautiful. It made you want to be part of it.
Wow.
But it wasn't based on the church. It was the community. It was the culture.
Yeah.
It was walking into a church, feeling welcomed, getting a lei as you walk in. Like the way they sang, the way they like hugged, the way they like, we're like, it was a luau every week. And having that like feeling, coming from not having family. And
I was about to say, it's a family. It's a love.
It's a family.
It's a family thing.
And so I think that the church maybe gets a different reputation in Utah because it's not the church, it's the culture that we've created, that Utah has created.
Mm-hmm.
It's interesting. I've seen it outside the state of Utah as well. It's definitely different.
Yeah.
On my mission, I knew I had to love people if they were going to convert.
Yeah.
And that's what I did. I just freaking loved people. And that's why I went back and a few years later, and it was so fun because like they were truly friends. I actually had one of my buddies from the mission come and ended up living with me. Helped him get a visa, and now he's married and lives in Utah.
Such a fun guy.
But really, again, that's like the thing for me is like I will love and give anyone in the world a chance. Black, white, Asian, male, female, trans, gay. Like it really doesn't matter. And that's what is really weird about judgmental people. And I've always felt racist people are less intelligent. Like if you're judging someone based on the color of their skin, their religion, I really feel like that's an intelligence problem.
It's just like it's not worth
be.
Like spending your time and energy like on anyways, right? It's just a waste of time.
It doesn't make sense. So I had never experienced racism until I went to the East Coast and I sold door to door, sold alarms. And there's some racist people out there. And I was like, oh my gosh, I didn't know this was real.
There's like
and that's when I started like
step back 50 years or something.
Yeah. And I'm like, what did you just say? Like, how do you like, and so, and it's everywhere in the world. There's people that are racist, bigots. There's people that are just angry people that if you're not the same as me, and if you don't agree with me, I hate you. And that's what's really interesting to me and just really weird. And so, when I was doing summer sales on the East Coast and then in Peru on my mission, Peruvians were really, really racist. And I was like, man, like, I really feel like it's an education and an intelligence problem. And now we talk about politics. Like I'll talk politics with anyone. And I was like, okay, yeah, you have a point. That's your reality. I don't necessarily agree. Mm-hmm. I'm not Republican. I'm not liberal. I definitely like certain aspects of both. I lean more conservative for sure because I believe in capitalism. Mm-hmm. I believe in capitalism as long as you have ethics and morals. But yeah, what was interesting to me on the East Coast, and then Utah was interesting. Boise, Idaho, growing up, everyone was white. I I knew one black person and like one Mexican growing up. Like literally, like his family was Mexican from Mexico, and then one black person. Everyone else was white. Like, so not diverse in Boise. But that was 20 something years ago.
Yeah.
But I also never experienced racism, which was interesting. And
there was no opportunity for it.
Yeah.
You go to the northern Idaho and there's a lot of racism. But Boise, yeah, like never experienced it. So my mind was absolutely blown on the East Coast when I experienced it, blown in Peru when I experienced it against me, against white people and black people in Peru. They're super racist.
Wow.
And so that's interesting. And then coming to Utah and Mormons versus not Mormons. And one thing I love about, we're all realtors here, the massive amount of people moving to Utah is diversity in ethnics and religion.
Yeah.
Is
very fun.
Awesome.
So fun.
It's so cool. You go to certain parts like Traverse Mountain and it's like, oh, wow. There's like you go to the Harmons up there. So diverse now. And
really?
It used to be, oh yeah.
Interesting.
It's really changed because Adobe brought in all these people from California.
Yeah, yeah.
I actually was talking to an Adobe recruiter and they're like, we freaking love Utah. We can pay our people less and they have a higher standard of living. So we're getting people to move to Utah all day long because it's a nicer place to live, less crime. They don't make as much, but they don't need to get paid as much. And so, Adobe brought in like 1,500 employees. Then Workforce brought in 4,000. Workfront brought in 4,000. So you have Oracle. So yeah, it was really cool to see. I've lived in Lehigh for 10 years, completely changed the demographics.
Yeah, Texas Instruments, I think, announced like 1 million square feet or something, and so many employees coming.
The data center. I mean, all those jobs are outside of Utah. There's not a lot of hiring going on in Utah.
Yeah, honestly, if Utah had not changed the way it has in the last like 5-10 years, I think I would have left.
Yeah, I think so too. I think you're right.
And I think Utah needed that. Like Utah,
sure.
like again, it has a lot of really beautiful attributes. Like Utah, the state itself is amazing. And I'm not saying I actually have a lot of love for the Mormon Church, but
so I have a question based on that. So we just talked about some things that kind of bug us that are like interesting struggles.
Mm-hmm.
Matt, let's say, I'm going to ask Betty first, but get ready to answer this as well. Like Betty's got this neighbor, Jeff, and his wife and kids. And he's like literally the best dude ever. The nicest neighbor, the nicest guy, their LDS, and it doesn't matter. Like you would, like just the nice, mows her lawn for her, rakes up the leaves in the fall time, brings the dog back when she runs away, lets us know when the garbage cans are left out.
Calls a welfare check if my door gets left open.
Texts us while we're in Mexico because the teenager's throwing a rager, checks in on her.
Actually, it wasn't Jeff.
Oh, it was the
no,
other guy,
it was a different neighbor.
Oh, okay. Anyways, so I'm kind of curious for you, Betty. You're Mexican American, immigrated. I mean, born in Mexico.
Yeah.
You look pretty white. You're always called a white girl, but you're definitely Hispanic and Spanish. Describe to me like what you like about people like Jeff. Like because so many people move to Utah and they're like, okay, yeah, there's some religious stuff that happens. Yeah, there's some judging that goes on. There's some stereotypes, but I don't know. What do you like about living in Utah? What do you like about people like Jeff? And you said you would have left if it hadn't changed. So what has changed and what do you like?
So I moved to Utah in 1994, 93, and we moved to Provo, and then Orem. And I hated it. I hated it all. And I probably have lived in more cities in Utah than the most people. I've lived in central Utah, from Manti, Monroe, Mayfield, South Sevier, Gunnison, Orem, all up the Wasatch Front, and the furthest north I've been is Centerville. And then with working in real estate, I've
Now back to Lehigh.
yeah.
Back to Lehigh.
She doesn't love
She's
Lehigh.
she's not jazzed about that.
No, I left Utah County because of how judgmental it is here, and how the culture is different as far as the church. It's not the church. It's a weird culture. It's a community culture. It's like going to summer cells in that little podunk town where everyone's racist. This area has a stigma, and it's very, very distinct from.
So how was Centerville different? What did you like about Centerville? Because you love Centerville.
So when I moved there after I got remarried, the culture was really accepting. I was a lot younger. I was a really young mom, which is totally is normal for Utah. And the demographics where I moved to Farmington, Centerville, everyone was like upper middle, like 40s. So all my neighbors were older, and kind of they felt like parents. Like everyone was just very like, they actually were cared about me. When I moved in, I had 5 different neighbors that showed up at my house and brought me food. And I am pregnant with my second child, my third. And we have this truck and all these people are coming in. My mom is super sick. She had cancer. And so we bought this house because it had a lift, had an elevator and a lift so that we could care for her. The family had a very, like, it's a disabled child. And so when I moved into that neighborhood, it was the first time that I felt like people genuinely cared about me, and they never once tried to get me to go to church, even though I was already a convert at this time. But my brother was military. My mom was very Catholic. And the people in this neighborhood just kept coming, but not in a religious way, not in no agenda other than to, hey, we just want to get to know you. It's who we are. Brought me jam, brought me bread, it was weird. And it just kept happening for like a year. And I'd go for walks and people were just really nice. I never went to church and I never got asked to go to church. And it was nice to have people that would want to sit there and talk to you about life. And so it made me feel included and safe, like, in that I was a person that wasn't like, oh, we feel bad because she's going to go to hell. They're just nice, happy people.
Yeah.
And they
what I found.
they don't care. Like I moved into the other side of the neighborhood, so I didn't see Jeff as much. But the guy that I bought the house from, they founded and own Nightmare on 13th.
Oh, cool.
They're very LDS and super nice people. And they actually interviewed me as their agent. He was my visiting home teacher. And they're not your normal like LDS. Like they like scary, gory stuff.
Love Satan.
Like and they were just so nice. I remember walking into their house and his wife's like, you should just buy this house. And I was going through a divorce at the time. And I was like, I can't buy this house. I'm in the middle of refining my flip over here. And I just was like, screw it, I'm going to do it. And so I bought the house, and it was just super cool to have just a bunch of neighbors welcome a single mom with 4. I already started getting tattoos. I was at the gym at 5:30 every morning. So I was always walking in and out of my house in like a sports bra and little shorts. And nobody never stopped saying hello.
Betty's like, I was coming in and out in a sports bra, and for some reason, everybody was interested in me.
So happy to see me. All the husbands were like mowing their lawn at 5:30 in the morning.
No,
in the winter.
So
shoveling my snow.
The biggest complaint I got is that our dogs wouldn't stop barking. But we had like my house and every neighbor, like 5 neighbors, like fences, and every single dog's like,
oh, that's the worst.
For weeks. And the one neighbor was like, your dog barks. I'm like, they can see each other. Yeah. So
you loved your neighbors. They never stopped coming around. And it was basically what I'm hearing. It was an agenda-free situation where they just were truly being good neighbors.
It was
without an agenda.
It was friendship.
Yeah.
It
awesome.
was to be able, and like I said, I've lived in a lot of places in Utah. I moved to North Salt Lake before that. I went to the same park every day with my daughter, who was 5 at the time. And I had Maya, who was 6 months old, and I was pregnant with Olive. And I sat next to the same moms for 6 months, and they did not say hello to me once.
Interesting.
And then I went to church one time. And the next time I was at that park, they were all my friends. And I just thought, I can't do this click thing. Like, again, I loved the culture of the church because of how giving they were. I just don't believe in a lot of the stuff. And so I just couldn't go.
Again, it's an agenda. It's a
club.
Yeah,
like
it's interesting. So
it felt like you had to be, you had to conform.
Like that as a member of the church. I was like, I'm not hanging out with these people. Like,
but I was very lucky though. Like in Farmington and Centerville, I had bishops that, they did not care. I was always honest. They're like, do you follow this? No. I drink coffee. I drink tea. I have a beer. I'm not going to pay tithing. And they would still be like, okay.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of good people in the church. Just, like I said earlier,
going to pay tithing.
There's people that truly believe in charity and being friends and being good people. And I found that as well. I found every neighborhood I've lived in, there's people with an agenda who are going to judge, who are going to be weird. And there's also really good people. I've had people really change my life, really touch my life.
Mm-hmm.
And so, Matt, I mean, talking about a lot of stuff here.
Sure.
But I feel like, again, going back to a very, very different course you're on. You don't go to church anymore on Sunday.
Mm-hmm.
What's been a challenge for you and Cherie? And we can't go too much longer. I'm sure you got stuff to do. You got kids to get home to. But there's so much to unpack here that I think there's a lot of people that can relate with. I guess what I'm trying to ask is, what's been hard for you? And is there anything that now that you're like, dang, that was tough to figure out, or that was really hard to go through, but I'm so glad I learned it, or I'm so glad I went through that. For me, it was, I was never going to leave my wife ever.
Mm-hmm.
And it was such an unhealthy relationship. And my kids, I was so worried about my kids.
Mm-hmm.
For you, I know a family's really important to you. And I did hear you say a couple times that it's been really hard with family not accepting your decision.
Yeah, I think my best friends were my in-laws. Like my father-in-law was actually one of my best friends.
Wow.
And so family was basically a lot of what comprised of my relationship. But I knew even when I was in the same belief system as them, I knew that was not healthy. I knew that like relationships outside of family was a priority for me. And I had continued to try to foster relationships with other people. And so we would actually do this thing where once or twice a week, we'd invite couples over for dinner from the church, from like our ward.
Yeah.
And we're like, hey, let's get to know, like, these people look pretty cool. Let's see them. These people look surprisingly cool. Let's meet them, and we invite them over. And I just over and over again recognize that. And kind of going back to your question before is like, what has got you to stay, and what things have you noticed that are changing in Utah? And I think this is starting to change, fortunately. And that is, I think Utah has been really good at mastering the pleasantries and not diving deeper into like real relationships.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And so like master of pleasantries is always what I say. So that means
Make sure you do your home teaching.
make sure you do your home
You do
teaching.
it the last day of the month, and it's a quick 5-minute message, and you don't really care how they're doing. Just got to get the home teaching message in.
Yeah, exactly. And are you, is there somebody that I can call when I'm in like a really bad situation? But that's not a family member. Like, who can I call and be like, dude, I'm just really struggling right now. And like, I can have a deep conversation with somebody who actually cares.
Yeah.
And that's so far beyond the, hey, how are you doing? What do you do for work? And just like the general, what'd you guys meet and how'd you get married? And it's always kind of the same story.
Yeah.
And then, you say hi to each other at church, and that was about it. And so I think we continue to struggle with building relationships with people. And so I just continue to make that a priority for us as a couple, because I think, growing up basically together, we were children when we got married. And so we had some serious, and still have a lot of anxious attachment behavior. And so, like, my identity is tied to my wife's identity. And if she left me, it feels like my life would be over.
Wow.
I know it's not true. And I'm trying to unprogram that part of my brain and just recognize that we have a great relationship, and that we can continue to try to foster and improve and get through challenges together. And I think the key to that is having relationships outside of our relationship.
Yeah.
And because otherwise it kind of, to me, feels like a prison a little bit. And so I think the thing that I've struggled with is literally creating amazing friendships that I want to last forever.
Yep.
And we've made that a priority. It's been easier as you leave the church and you have new relationships and trauma bonding and all these things happening, and also in real estate, right? You meet so many people, a lot of people in real estate that you connect with, and so I think that would be probably my biggest challenge that we've gone through. I mentioned earlier that I talked to 10,000 people on the phone, and then you recognize that, like, dude, everybody's just a human being that wants love, connection. They want to feel important. They want to feel heard.
Mm-hmm.
And we all have the same basic wants and needs. And how we address those things, how we communicate ourselves, is different, right? Yeah. Our hobbies are different. Our belief systems may be different, and
communication styles, our senses of humor.
Yeah, sense of humor.
Very different.
All those things are different, but we have the same wants and desires as human beings, and that's mostly from our, goes back to all the way from where we stem from in evolution. Is like, we have this tribalism of like, we want to belong somewhere.
Yeah.
And I think that's something that's interesting, that I think as a society, including Utah, and the reason why I'm starting to love living here is because I think we are becoming more emotionally intelligent as a people. And I think it's very concentrated. We have a high per capita, like a ton of people in Utah that have gone through therapy, a ton of people in Utah that are communicating at a whole nother level that they've never been before. And say what you want about social media. Like, yes, tons of bad things from it. The list goes on, right?
Sure.
But we all see that we're all just people. And I see the person from South Korea that's like basically just wants love and connection.
Yeah.
Just like I do. And they're not some crazy, weird, completely different species from me.
Yep.
And so when I start seeing that connection, I just start realizing, I think we're becoming more connected as not just a society, but as a species.
Well, I think we're getting more educated.
Yeah.
Too.
Just more exposure.
I think people get educated on what other people's life experiences are and what everyone wants: love, connection, to feel needed and wanted, and that people are different, and it's fine. And you talked about evolution. I really just think about what the human brain needs to be happy.
Yeah.
And everyone's different. And so it's really funny. And as you were talking, I was thinking about me and Betty bumping into you and Cherie at the bar
Yeah.
2 years ago.
Yeah.
And I'm
Was
like,
that 2 years ago?
yeah. I'm like, oh, that's Matt. And I'd met your wife once, and I thought you're Mormon. I mean, you had been.
I was, yeah.
When I met you. And so I'm like, oh, dude, I always thought Matt was cool. He's got alcohol in his hand. I'm like, oh, we should be friends. Like,
Yeah, it's so funny
that's
because
awesome.
same thing when I ran into you guys, I was like, I told Tree, I'm like, hey, I guess we have more in common than I thought. I don't know.
Yeah. Well,
but yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, I got divorced and started dating a heathen.
Yeah.
No, but, you know.
I think I said that.
Yeah.
I'm a heathen.
I'm a heathen. And
6 months later, you know, after I separated from Lauren, met Betty. There's 7 months. And we start dating, and my whole group of friends changed because I wanted to be extremely happy, and I was really driven at finding happiness. My whole marriage, I was growing, and I was already on that path. And there was things that didn't align. And the superficial, go to church, to a lot of people go to be part of something. They love it because they're part of something, which is great for them.
You had a huge struggle with that.
I never felt like I was in that. I always told off-color jokes. I always cussed. I went fly fishing on Sundays instead of going to church. There's lots of things that I was just like, no, like, I don't feel like cussing's bad. I'm not going to hell for cussing. I'm not going to hell for wanting to have sex twice a day. Like, that's just my sex drive, you know, like, like shit, like, but like, you can't talk about that at church or with Mormon people. Like,
oh, right. Yeah.
Like, you know, I had fishing buddies I had to stop fishing with. They were so fun to fish with. In the fishing aspect, I could not talk to them about anything but fishing because we did not connect, and we're no longer close friends.
Do you feel like you didn't connect, or is it you felt you weren't accepted?
It's not that they didn't accept me. They didn't want to talk about hot girls because they were married, and they like didn't want to be bad priesthood holders and husbands and joke about like raunchy jokes. Like, or there's just different things.
They're just in survival mode. And so they're trying to put, like, it's not necessarily always that they don't accept you and are judging.
Right.
It's sometimes that it's just they're avoiding the thing that's going to make their life harder.
Yeah.
Or
You know?
or I'm going to even dumb it down further. He just didn't think my jokes were funny.
Yeah.
Fuck, man.
Yeah.
Like, I remember.
And that's just reality too, right?
Yeah.
Like,
it's not relatable to him, you know?
me and Cody are just we're laughing our asses off quoting Step Brothers. And literally this kid goes, "You guys are gross." I'm like, I'm quoting like, you haven't seen Step Brothers?
Brothers is hilarious.
So it's not even acceptance. Like, I'm going to take it dumb it way down. There's no connection because we just don't relate. We're not the same.
Yeah,
Do you remember?
And that's how I felt most of my Mormon lifestyle or interactions was like, I want to quote Step Brothers. I want to quote raunchy, hilarious movies. I have a really dry, vulgar sense of humor. That really doesn't work for conservative Mormons. And that's okay.
Yeah.
They're just different. And all of a sudden I come out of that and I start making different friends. Had to make a completely new group of friends because most of my friends were married Mormon men. And so start making different friends, bump into you at the club. And I'm like, dude, I thought Matt was really cool. That's awesome. And he drinks. And then me and Betty are going to go to this concert. And I'm like, I'm going to go out on a limb here. Well, he drinks, so he's probably cool going with some crazy party friends. We have some friends that get a little wild, get a little tipsy. And I went out on a limb, invited you, and we had the time of our life. You and Shree were just
they were my
freaking
favorite
party animals, like hilarious.
They were just dancing and happy.
Dancing and happy and fun. I'm like, I'm
their,
so glad.
Their vibe.
And then Sean. So you and me, or you and Sheree, Sean, were like the best invites ever because it's been like, that's what I look for. I look for happy, fun people who are like me, who can party a little bit. We don't go hard. We're not like,
I don't think it's not about the party.
It's about partying.
It's about being able to go to an event and to connect.
Yeah.
Spirit, not spiritually can be used, but it's like we were able to connect on a human level.
Mm-hmm.
That it didn't matter about skin, didn't matter what you believed, it didn't matter
how you were
Well,
dressed, what you were drinking.
It didn't
or not
matter
drinking.
where your background or what you were dealing with. Like, we were just able to have a good time and like the human connection.
Yeah.
Well, figuratively, you're like almost like just like putting your guts on the table and you allow to be seen. You're fully seen by this other person. They allow you to see them fully. You have this human connection, like you're saying. And you know, it's interesting. You're talking about these
I didn't need to know how you met your wife or where you came from or what you believed in. It was a human connection.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was a lot deeper and less superficial. And that's what I enjoyed. And that was what was really fun. Is like, now we're friends. We hang out all the time. And we can talk about stereos. We can talk about real estate, how you're crushing it in real estate, how Betty's crushing real estate. But we can also talk about sex.
Yeah.
And
real life problems.
And
real life problems and difficulties.
And you laugh at my jokes. I appreciate that. Like some of them are pretty vulgar. Like
you know, this is what you're talking about though.
Like,
this is something interesting. I'll ask you is like, have you noticed that when you started going through so faith transition is just an example. Let's say let's jump down and for a change of topic a little bit and say you go through these major life changes into real estate and then into maybe your divorce and into a change in your belief system. And all these things are massive life changes. And this book I read once, massive book, really, really good. It's called Brain That Changes Itself. And in that, they talk about neuroplasticity. And that's where, you know, when you say like kids can learn a second language very easily.
Yeah.
Right. That's because their brains are very plastic. They're very like moldable and absorbent.
Like sponges,
This book talks about people that have gone through strokes and how they can basically induce a state of plasticity and then put their brain back into this mode of learning and adapting. And I think I forced my brain into that when I went on my mission and then became a way better student than I ever was in high school and college because of that. And I think the same thing, maybe a little different because you're going through so much trauma, but I think it induces a state of plasticity where you can learn new skills and it's an opportunity for another level of success, maybe in an area that you've never seen success in before. So have you noticed that? Like, have you noticed any changes in your skill sets and your ability to absorb information that maybe was more difficult to absorb before?
Yeah, I think that's a really good question. And I have lots of things I want to say to that. I would say being able to connect with people that ability has gone up. Relatability. When you're stuck in a bubble, and that's one big problem that people all over the world have. They're stuck in their bubble and they they refuse to relate. So all of a sudden, when your wife walks out on you, you are no longer in your married bubble. You're getting a divorce.
Yeah, it's popped.
It's popped. You're a single dad. And all of a sudden you got to start dating again. You're in a way different bubble. I was like not excited to date. Girls are crazy.
Not excited. Okay.
I was so excited and not excited. So excited, intimidated. So yeah, you're thrown into a different bubble. And yeah, your brain has to grow. You have to, or you're going to be single and miserable the rest of your life. You got to learn how to date again. You've got to learn how to navigate the conversations of why you got divorced. And most people build a story of their terrible, terrible ex, which I've got those stories, but there's a lot of stuff that I could have done as well to improve. And looking back, like, so yeah, all of a sudden you're thrown into all new bubbles. I stopped going to church and I really started searching, like, okay, what's, my last 12 years of marriage and life, 13 years with this girl, like, it was not great. There's lots of fun parts, great parts, happy parts, successful parts. But how do I want my next 13 years to be? And I wanted something way different. And I would say the divorce kind of caused my brain to really have to change and learn. And it's been rough. It's been...
sometimes not comfortable, though. Yeah.
I mean, it was insanely stressful. The divorce is hell. But it started way before the divorce.
Yeah.
Because... don't want to talk about it too much to respect her and not bash her. But there was things in my marriage where I was like, this is not okay. Like, this is not what I wanted.
Mm.
And this is not making me happy. And it feels terrible. And so I was searching for that already. I was searching for growth and happiness. And I felt like I was dragging her around, like, please come to this conference. Please come to therapy. Please read this book with me. Like, let's figure this out. And
like you guys disconnected on a like core level.
oh, absolutely. I was trying to grow and doing this, and there was a very different path, very, very different path. And so yeah, I think I read the book Psycho-Cybernetics, about programming your brain, and the plastic surgeon who turned into a psychologist. Have you read that book?
I've heard good things about it. Yeah.
So this guy, let's say Betty gets a nose job. She already has a perfect nose, but let's say that she had a pretty jacked up nose from a car wreck before. Okay. So he would give Betty a new nose. It's perfect. She'd look in the mirror and be like, oh, I'm so ugly. So this plastic surgeon started having experiences like that. He's like, no, it's perfect. I gave you a perfect nose. And people would be like, I'm still super ugly. He's like, no, you're a freaking supermodel. You are perfect. Like, so he realized it was internal.
Whoa.
And he started working with people
Body
to
dysmorphia?
reprogram their brain. And I read that book. Mike Ferry recommended it years ago. And I started reprogramming my brain.
Mm-hmm.
I was not confident, was not social, terrible self-esteem. And that's what really started helping me be successful, is my affirmations. And I think I sent you my slideshow audio of me screaming at the top of my lungs with Eminem in the background, my affirmation.
Yes.
And I listened to that like 15 times a day, 20 prospecting, cold calling. And because it was intimidating, it was hard, but I wanted to be a better person. And I was convincing myself of that. And
those affirmations, like, I think there's a key part of your life where
huge,
like that could be
huge.
So massive for you to like almost scream at the top of your lungs, like affirming that you're more than what you've told yourself you are in the past.
And the book tells you when you have these negative self-deprecating thoughts, you actually verbally say out loud, stop. And everyone thinks shitty things about themselves. Everyone is intimidated. Everyone is scared, has anxious thoughts. And you tell yourself to stop. And you have to say positive things and make yourself believe them.
I have an interesting thought there. So this is an exercise I've been doing lately is imagine. So sometimes I'll look at, I'm at the gym. I want to have bigger arms, right? I want to have arms like Sam. And
like Kip.
Yeah, like Kip. Yeah, our buddy Kip was massive. Anyway, so I'm at the gym looking at my arms. I'm like, man, it's so small. I want bigger arms, right?
300 grams of protein.
Yeah, 300 grams of protein a day, and didn't do well today on that one. But so I start, you could say that to yourself, and then I think about something stupid I said yesterday to one of my colleagues or in an interview or whatever it is, and it's so easy for me to say literally like, oh, that was so stupid. And I realize when I say, I'm not necessarily literally saying I'm stupid, but that is actually
that's the message.
The message I'm portraying is that what I said was stupid, therefore I am stupid.
Right.
And so what I started to do, and this is like a silly exercise, but I started treating like my arms like they're an individual, like they're a person. I started treating the past thing I said like it's a person. And if I said, oh my gosh, you're so stupid, why did you say that? Like that was so dumb, to anybody else that's my friend. If I said that to you, Sam, I'd feel like a terrible person.
Yeah.
I'd be like, oh my gosh, I am the worst friend. I'd be like verbally abusing you if I used the terms I used to myself. And so that's when I started realizing, okay, this is very, very toxic. And instead of like, we're pushing so much energy towards like being self-critical and like judgmental of ourselves and shaming ourselves, when we could literally just take that exact same energy and say, oh, this is what I learned from that, and I no longer want to do that, and in the future I'm going to do this. And said we're doing twice as much work.
And you give yourself a little credit. And I'm still a good person.
Yeah.
And I'm a pretty cool dude. And I'm a great dad. And I'm a
You
good
just
husband.
Build up.
And your brain is literally a math equation. You have all these negatives that naturally come in from other people, from yourself, because that's life.
They say that like your thoughts stem from your 7-year-old self, like your negative thoughts,
Oh my God.
or from when you learn them when you're little.
Oh, yeah,
You're
absolutely.
7.
And I was actually about to talk about parenting, but you have to purposely add positives into that math equation in your brain.
Yeah.
They're not going to add themselves. And if you put enough positive in there, they cancel out. Just like a math equation, positive cancels out a negative. Eventually, you can get to a net positive situation, but it's hard. You have to be purposeful about it. So with my business coach up at Utah Life and at Real Broker, where Betty and I are now at, the reason I joined that brokerage is he's a Tony Robbins trained office manager trainer. And I was like, my divorce has been hell, custody battle, trying to keep a business running, both real estate and my multifamily has been hell. It's been rough. It's been, I haven't had goals in years. I've just been surviving.
Yeah.
It's like, I want that. I need that positivity in my brain.
Yeah. That's what they're really good with those Tony Robbins coaches. Yeah.
Yeah. And he's like, it was funny. He was interviewing me and Betty's like, Sam, you seem like a serious guy. You're probably not too into this rah-rah stuff. I'm like, actually, I fucking love that. That's actually why I'm here. He's like, what? And
He's like, oh, this is
I kept
great.
talking to Sam about Justin, and he's like, I need to meet Justin.
Yeah. I was like, there have been times in my life when those people have lifted me up. And that's what I wanted. I wanted to be lifted up. And if you don't do that on purpose, you're stuck with a net negative in your brain every day. So I listen to podcasts every day. I listen to my affirmations that I recorded over Eminem, one of my favorite Eminem songs. That's Till I Collapse. I have Justin giving me positive shit when I see him every day. And then he does his trainings multiple times a week. And then I have, a couple of my investors and friends, people like you are super positive. So I choose to have that coming in my brain. We talked about being a good person and having empathy. And again, I don't bash on the Mormon church. I think it's just the world in general. I'm no longer going to church on Sunday. Mm-hmm. But I think the big takeaway from today was, how can you empathize with your neighbor and your friend and forget what church they go to, forget how they live their life, what they look like, what they dress like, what they're interested in, and just empathize and be a true human being. And I think that's why you and I and Betty and Cherie connected, and this other great group of friends that we now have, is like Taylor and Carell are so different from me, but they're real people, and they empathize and they care and they love. And you and Cherie, like we're pretty different in a lot of ways, but in a lot of ways we're very similar as far as we're happy, fun, nice people who enjoy being loving and sharing fun experiences with people. And to me, that's why I don't like to get into the religion and even politics. I love just to focus on the human being and the human aspect. And that's, you asked me a question earlier, what's been the biggest kind of hard thing or thing learning, changing my brain? That's been the funnest part for me, is just really focusing on the friendship, the love, and the human aspect.
When you start loving those connections that you have with people, it's like especially in the business we're in, it starts feeling a lot less like work.
Yeah.
And it starts feeling a lot like you're just connecting. And
it's huge.
That was the game changer. I used to hate real estate. Like, I honestly hated it.
Really?
I did not like it. Well, I mean, I loved real estate. I've always loved real estate, but like the daily tasks to be successful as a realtor, like cold calling,
monotonous,
I hate that too.
Interviews, appointments, and the awkwardness, and then the sales and the people treating me like I'm a scumbag when I'm just trying to help them. And like, there were so many things I was just like, I absolutely hate this. And literally on Sunday night, I would get this anxiety brewing inside me, like, tomorrow it's back to the grind. And
that's not fun.
It's not fun. But now, literally, I look forward to Mondays.
Not to connect. You were taught to hit numbers and go after goals.
Yep.
And not treat people like people, treat people like numbers.
Exactly. Yeah.
Again, empathy, love, connection.
Yep.